أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. We're going to continue from this book by Badiar Zaman, and I will also be introducing you to one of his other books. In originally it's called Muhakamat, in English it's called A Prescription for the Ulama. It's like how should our perspective be in the face of any topic related to the Quran, related to science, and we'll read some parts from it also. Today's topic will be about, do scientists have any right to talk about Islam? Or how much right or how much influence should they have in the view of religion? I've had some friends in high school remembering when Stephen Hawkins, he said God might exist. Because he was a disbeliever, but he once said that he might exist. I had many of my friends coming to school really happy. Okay, we finally have him believing. Our iman, our belief is much stronger now. But should our belief be affected so much from a scientist's view? Let's see. The second matter. So this book is mostly about belief in God. How can we observe the universe to find a creator? But before starting the topic, starting the evidences, it has some firm beginnings. It has a very strong, what should be our pillars, what should be our point of view in any topic related to belief. Last lesson we have talked about, does denial have any proof? But today we're going to talk about if scientists have right or influence on religion. The second matter, with respect to a problem subject to discussion in a science or art, those who stand outside that science or art cannot speak authoritatively, however great, learned, and accomplished they may be, nor can their judgments be accepted as decisive. They cannot form part of the learned consensus of the science. So however you're great, learned, skillful, specialized you cannot speak authoritatively outside your own area of study. For example, the judgment of a great engineer on the diagnosis and cure of a disease does not have the same value as that of the lowliest physician, the lowliest doctor. No matter how skillful the scientist is, he doesn't have or she doesn't have the right to talk about medicine. Even the lowliest doctor has more to say about illnesses than an engineer. Even in medicine, if you have specialized in, let's say, heart, you don't have the right to talk about the ear. It's about you being specialized. In particular, the words of denial of a philosopher who was absorbed in the material sphere, who becomes continually more remote from the non-material or spiritual and cruder and more insensitive to light, whose intelligence is restricted to what his eye beholds. The words of such a one are unworthy of consideration and valueless with respect to non-material and spiritual matters. So even though these two topics, engineering and medicine, were in the material sphere, are similar sciences, where religion is much different, even in a similar topic as both doctors cannot speak authoritatively within each other's specializations, even if it's a very similar topic, how can a scientist, which is being stuck deeply on the material sphere, talk authoritatively in a spiritual, non-material matter? Of course they can't. Their statements are unworthy and valueless. On matters sacred and spiritual, the question is, if scientists don't have the right to talk about belief, who is authority? Who is the authority in this topic? On matters sacred and spiritual, and concerning the divine unity, there is total accord among the hundreds of thousands of the people of truth, such as Sheikh Gilani, may his mystery be sanctified, who beheld God's sublime throne while still on the earth, who spent 90 years advancing in spiritual work, and who had unveiled to him the truth of belief in all three stations of certainty. This being the case, what value have the words of philosophers? So before reading this part, who has the right to talk? Scholars. What kind of scholars? Religious, spiritual scholars. They have the right to talk about religion. Sheikh Gilani, like we call somebody a professor because he spent 20 years in a certain topic. But these scholars have spent all their life, 50, 60 years, maybe 10 hours a day, studying these spiritual matters. They have become the professors of the professors in their own field. They have the right to talk about belief. Let's say the author of this book, Bediüz Zaman, he was a very known philosopher, a very known scholar who has lived in Turkey, who has written books. He has both studied the material sciences as well as religious sciences. He has spent many, many years in these topics, trying to specify what atheism is, what are the proofs that God exists. So he has the right to talk about this topic, not a scientist who is specialized in a very different topic. He doesn't have the right to talk. This being the case, what value have the words of philosophers who, through their absorption in the most diffuse details of the material realm and the most minute aspects of multiplicity, are choking and dazed? Are not their denials and objections drowned out like the buzzing of a mosquito by the roaring of thunder? Like their rejection, their denial is like the buzzing of a mosquito. But a scholar's statement about this topic is like a roaring of thunder. Yes. We'll read a section from this book also, a very similar topic. It's on page 24. It should also be noted that if a person becomes deeply involved in something, it usually makes him slow in other things. It is because of this that the person who becomes absorbed in materially grows ignorant of spiritual and non-material matters, and his knowledge is superficial. Hence, just as the pronouncement of concerning moral and spiritual matters of someone proficient in material ones will not be authoritative, so most of the things he says about them will not be worth listening to. For sure, if drawing an analogy between medicine and engineering, an invalid were to consult an engineer instead of the doctor and take the medicine he prescribed, it would mean inviting his relatives to his wake and asking for a report ordering his transfer to the hospital of the graveyard. It's like you calling an engineer in case of an emergency. That's like sending an invitation to your relatives about the burying ceremony in a graveyard. It's similar. Consulting a material scientist for a religious or a believing, a faith topic related to faith would be as devastating. Similarly, to consult the ideas of the materialists concerning spiritual matters, which are sheer truths and totally abstract, is quite simply to announce the arrest of the heart, a subtle dominical faculty, and the death of the mind, a luminous substance. Yes, the minds of those who seek everything immaterially see no further than their eyes, and the eyes cannot see spiritual matters. It's a very beautiful sentence. I'll read this part again. The minds of those who seek everything in materiality see no further than their eyes, and the eyes cannot see spiritual matters. Their eyes only see this world. In a spiritual matter, that eye is blind. So in short, scientists don't have the right to talk about any subject other than theirs, even if it's material. They don't have the right to talk authoritatively. They can have their own statements, but it's not going to be considered as authority. Especially if it's a spiritual matter, they have no authority to talk in. But who has authority? All these millions of scholars, thousands of prophets. They were the ones who have the right to talk. They are the ones who brought these ideas in the first place. So they have the right to talk. They have the right to bring up their own statements. And we need to consider their ideas as the valid ones. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم.